a higher price for a discount in the future. They might help you with some Guangxi issues that could expedite things that turned out to be a problem for you in China. From authorities and permits to you just name it. They might know someone if you want to set up some distribution that can help you to get the license for that distribution, that can help you to get a lot that you can produce. You never know what kind of Guangxi they have, but Tim Brown didn't even show that he was willing to stretch out the hand. Remember we said insider is the two of us against the rest. What Tim Brown just said is, we're silent. That turned, what happened next?
The loyalty is broken, so he left his assistant to talk to it. Take it or leave it.
Right. So basically he turned from an inside to an outsider again. So they said, this is the price we have, you have three options, take it, or leave it. So done. We are not willing to discuss anything further, that's it. Lot size, that's it. Smaller lot size, no. So you just demonstrated that the CEO was having trust in you, in your sincerity and your loyalty. But you didn't earn it because you ignored any kind of willingness, at least the willingness, to discuss this. Let me have a look if I have this Tim Brown transparency up here. Yes, here we go. See, he took for granted that he could communicate with the boss, right? Failed to prepare properly some ideas that he could, in between the lines, we currently have some severe problems with getting the license to so-and-so. Is there a way you could help us? They would be, well, you never know. Their Guangxi network is mostly so elaborate. There is someone who can do something for you. So they could put this in. He pursued basically a red Z approach. Limited pie, my win, your loss. So the other party is your competitor, and he did not focus on the long term, because that accepting of a higher price right now is paving the avenue for a further business and shows your interest in a long-term relationship. You refused even to discuss that. Respectively, didn't have an alternative idea. You expect the Chinese take it or leave it, which is red, adversarial. And last but not least, why can't we sit? That's why he was invited to come over. Sit down, is there a way that we mutually can get out of this? If you help us, what can we do to help you? No, price is the price, you sign it. And again, in the trainings I did for companies, that was causing lots of heated discussions. Mr. Gatz, what is a contract if the contract is not valid? I just told you it's a piece of paper of mutual understanding. And now you understand why I told you that in the Western world, if you have the contract signed, you can go back home and celebrate because you have a deal. In China, the deal is accomplished when you have the money and I have the goods, both sides happy. Insiders will tell you, if you think problems came up until you sign the contract, you are not out of this world. The real problems will show up in the implementation of this. So basically, and they know this. And if you're an insider, you're getting through these waters. It's possible. But Tim Brown didn't show a single attempt in doing so, and basically fell back to outside. So from now onwards, his chance to negotiate with the CEO head on, down to zero. So that shows you this. And then I'd like afterwards to go back to some basics. In the remaining time we have today, I'd like to go back to some basics that I handed out on the photocopies and make some comments. And before I do so, here's a paper that deals with what we did prior to the break, namely, find out what's the best way to avoid litigation, and it gives you some comments on all three approaches, particularly on the first two, the arbitration and the mediation. Now, read that through and tell me what is the major downside of particularly arbitration, but also check out mediation. Where are the problems? should be sufficient. If they come around, should be
Sure,
enough.
it's too much.
Refer to, and then you say, when you sign the contract, who is the arbitration court? Because here too, we too could discuss endlessly. Do we take the ones in Strasbourg, in Vienna, the Chinese, which one? This can take you forever. Okay, Mr. Gatz, then we agree with the Chinese, good. But then we have to agree on setting up of this panel. The panel will consist of course, only Europeans, so I know where they are. Would you like to have only Chinese on it? No. Okay, 50-50, good. Who has the casting vote? The Chinese or the Westerners? Oh, the Chinese, no, the Westerners. Can you see another conflict? So what's good for the contract is, we will agree on the, let's say, I make this up now, totally made up, on the Strasbourg, on this arbitration panel emanating from Strasbourg, European organization. And this panel consists of 2 Westerners, 2 Chinese, and an Australian will have a casting vote. Here, since Asians also have lots of business with the Australians and they have a reputation for being fair, why should they be against this? You do this once you're on good terms. And then you have agreed on this. Since we have found out that arbitration rulings you are in hell if you're in a conflict. But if you look at this, the best thing is arbitration. So if you want to have this arbitration, then put another sentence into your contract. Both parties agree in advance to take the arbitration panel's ruling as binding. The benefit is you don't have to go to court. You avoid the court situation. It is only to some extent a benefit. I know the world is complicated. Whenever, when I was as young as you, I was interested in a number of things, only to find out these things are earning very little money. And the things that really bring the money will cut dry, which I was very disinterested in. The same goes for this one here. Here we are really talking money. So you help yourself if you set time limits. You help yourself if you make the arbitration composition already when you're in good and on speaking terms. And you help yourself if you say we take the arbitration ruling as binding. Still, the other side, as you read in the text, could take this ruling to court to find out if it's legal. And the court could drag this out for quite some time. And still the problem in the court ruling as well as in the arbitration ruling is its enforcement. The arbitration panel might say, yes, this is the way it is, say, no, not 40% discount, lack equality, 20% discount. The Chinese might still say, forget it. What do you do? See, this is the problem. That is very difficult to solve. And you learned about the courts that you have judges, it's getting less, but you still have them, who got the job as an award from their party activity, as an award for their soldier activity. They might be hiring officers. To make a living after retirement, they get this job. Then you have, of course, some legally trained officers, judges. They get more and more into the fore, you're right. But still, corruption runs rampant. But still, there is this huge vision. These Westerners came here to exploit us. So we have to protect our people. And you read about this protectionism here in the text twice. It means, for instance, if what the Western company does would hurt local companies, your chance to win this is somewhere down to zero. You can do whatever you like, they will of course protect their own people's interest. And that goes very much in line with what I told you. Every lawyer who represents a case in court has to deliver an oath never to do anything that would hurt China. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean it not to do anything that would hurt Chinese. It might be that you as Westerner would get the court ruling's favor because what that Chinese wants to have would basically hurt the Chinese people. So life is more complicated than, okay, everything the Westerners want will hurt China. But the statement in itself is sufficient to realize you have lawyers, they will be utmost careful to do something that they afterwards could be reproached for what you did is hurting our country. That is, you will have to retract your license. You're out. You wouldn't do that. So you think about this twice. And of course, as you also read in the text, since the laws are still contradicting, because it's new, it's emerging, there are lots of lawyers who really make good business out of this. You don't know, you need a lawyer, they will ask you for inflated prices. That is typical. So that is even in today's times the case. That it's very difficult to find a competent lawyer who's worth the money he charges. Sorry, but that's the way it is. So, but basically, you might draw a long face and say, hallelujah, how could you do business then there? Well, you should try to avoid that situation. That's why I at the beginning put so much stock on invest time to turn into an insider. Trust, loyalty, respect, sincerity. If this is established, Tim Brown, and you help each other, then there is no need actually for a court. And there's no need for an arbitration panel. If you go that way, that really means you sever the relationship long term, that's it. Try to rescue as much as you can. But be careful, you might spend money on the arbitration panel, you spend money on you people representing you there, you spend money on, I don't know what, traveling and all the other things, and basically you get a piece of paper that tells you you're right. And again, literally, I don't want to be vulgar, you can really hang it in your toilet to read it while you're sitting on a box. Nobody will help you to enforce this. If you bring this to the other side, you owe me, he will look at you and so what? That's the way it is. So you've got to avoid this. Remember I gave you this example with these little ducklings in their beak, where they use for the beak a red color that could be sucked off by the babies if they take it in the mouth and they go in a bathtub with it, a little yellow beak to play in the water. They came from China and the beak was red, looked attractive. I forgot, I told you, specify your contract. They want to, of course, Western companies, they are not virgins and holy saints. They were pushing the price down. So what do? You use cheapest chemicals possible. They use chemicals that would be sucked off if they get into water, and kids suck on it, and it would be cancer causing. So when this came out, big commotion. Who's at fault? I think it's the Western company. Because they should have not neglected to put down in detail what kind of color do we use for the beak, what kind of plastic do we use for the duckling. But no, the price, Germans, very cost obsessed, price, no time for friendship, price. And then the second mistake, before you send the 2 containers with the ducklings, send us 4 as samples. Remember the shirt, Gatz's lesson. Get them as sample before you give a go-ahead for 10,000. No, time, it's Christmas coming up, we need to have that. Then all of a sudden they had a shit on the place, and now try to sue them. How do you do this? Even if you go to amicable negotiations, gets you nowhere, believe me. Number 2, if you go to mediation, gets you nowhere. Arbitration, you might win it, but you still don't get the money. So it's too late. You've got to do this early on by following the other way. This is culture. That's the different mindset. Plus, I bet you that German company was saying they're never ordering any of these toys from that bastard company. In other words, you canceled, you severed the bonds with that company. There's no money to get out of you. Why should I be in any way cooperative? So that ends somewhere in nowhere. So basically, if you want to lower the cost to a minimum, take the ducks, burn them, and keep the 2 containers. Because if you send them back, who do you think pays for the sending them back? The guys who sent you the ducklings? See, number 1. Number 2, if you bring them into China, you pay again import tariffs. But they come from China. Yeah, hang on. They come from Hamburg. Okay, they should go to Shanghai. So, is this import or is this export? No, it's different. Where do they come from? They will ask you again and again. And you realize, shit. So you pay even tariffs on it. So that's why I said you lost. This thing is simply lost. Minimize the damage. Don't try. Germans love to fight for the right, but we sue them. Well, you can sue them, good luck. Basically, you're lost. That's the outcome of this. But anyway, if you set up a contract, focus on the details. You learned this today. Be careful not to go to this cultural quicksand. Be aware that the best option is in advance setting timelines, setting for each of these steps that qualify you to court, and then of course also to focus on the composition of the arbitration and say arbitration ruling is binding for both parties. You agree on this in advance. That's the best thing you can do. That's the best thing you can do. But the enforcement can still be a problem. It will be easily done if you have the right Guangxi into the political arena. If that case will trigger some political interest, you wouldn't believe how quick that Chinese will pay you the money he owes you. But as long as you don't have that, they give you the finger. That's the hot kitchen you're in. And you cannot westernize this. You cannot Indianize this. This is the situation you're in. And corruption is not the only problem, but again, their interest towards their local areas. If there's an area where this would mean that a company goes bankrupt and 200 jobs go down the drain, they will fight tooth and nail to rescue that company. I told you on the slide, it's not a question of ethical considerations. It is downright a question of benefits that we can take out of this from a long-term perspective. Benefits is the jobs. Sustained, okay, then the Germans are wrong, the Chinese is right, we kept the jobs. That's as easy as it is. It's not the rule book that will decide, the law book that will decide it on it. It will be basically economic long-term interests. Done. That's the situation if you run into a contract conflict. And that's the reason I'm doing this in your courses, to make you aware how important it is to turn into an insider and do business on an insider perspective. So, after I have said this, I handed out a number of transparencies in our last lesson. And I'd like to make some comments on them to put some life into this. Let's begin with this one. It is called Impact of Confusing Values on International Business. You should have that. Briefly check it out. I just want to make some comments on it. Come on, half an hour and I'll let you go, but you need to have, you don't have that?
Regarding the current situation, you said arbitration is the better solution.
Yeah.
What if the arbitration panel plays red and stand for one party?
They won't. If you take an international one, or the one they have here quoted for China, their interest is to focus on matter of fact. Is this quality of this t-shirt substandard or is it standard, according to conventional rules? They are very much Western. Western in their mindset, in terms of it's about the issue at hand and not political interests. Again, you need to have, of course, one independent arbitration court. An independent one. That is, they are really interested in solving the matter at hand rather than being swayed by political interests. That won't happen. So they don't play red. They will tell you, no, this duck has a color on its beak that is causing cancer. So that duck disqualifies for being sold. You have to compensate the buyer for the money he paid you. That's definitely what they will come up with. If this will happen, that's what I told you. That's a long way to go. But their job is to find a very objective ruling. And the one in China does exactly the same. So, impact of confusing values on international business. Just to go this briefly through. a deep divide in the relationship with insiders and no, I'm running out of them.
Professor, what is the duck example that you're giving? Because is this a real life scenario that which
Yes,
happened? Okay.
that happened. That was ducks like this, that size. I
Yeah.
bet you've seen them. They're yellow
Yeah.
and they have the red beak.
Yeah.
And they were orders from China, and for the red beak, they were painting some color on it that would dissolve when kids put everything in the mouth. So they were sitting in a bathtub, and all of a sudden, mothers found out the red of that beak went off. And some mother luckily gave it for a check, and they said, "Hallelujah, did you give this to your baby? That's cancer causing."
Oh my God.
That's a very poisonous color they used.
So, Professor, if you sue them, like you said, it's not going to, they're not going to win. So, like, how is that possible? You're suing them, right?
Yes. So
And you have the proof that it happened.
so what?
I mean, since it's a critical situation.
Buying transparency is right. Business is about business. If I see you don't want to do any, you won't buy anything again from my company, don't expect anything. Okay, let's go into post-amicable negotiations. Let's talk. Let's talk about it. And you won't believe how long we can talk about this. Then let's go into mediation. Then let's go into arbitration. Arbitration ruling is binding. Who said so? Nothing in the contract. Let's take it to court. If that means that you sue that company in China, and if they have to pay this, they would be bankrupt, and along with that, 60 jobs, not take a wild guess.
Professor, one more doubt. Suppose when we are trying to build an insider relationship, when you mention you said you have to mention the contract arbitration or mediation. Suppose when we mention what they will think, will they take us consider as insider or while mentioning these details in the contract?
When you do this, you are on an insider level. Otherwise, you wouldn't get to the contract. They sometimes are hesitant because they say, "Why do you want to talk about divorce prior to marriage?" That's the saying. But still, you've got to say, well, in the Western world, we are very focused on legal aspects, and this is. Remember, the two of you against the others. The two of you against the legal department in your company. Then it works. It really can work. So here what I handed out to you is, again, some summary of things we talked about. Namely, and I'd like to bring this again to your attention. There's a deep divide between insiders and outsiders. Insiders, you treat based on Confucianism. Hospitality, trust, we talked about this. Outsiders, stratagems, war tactics. I try to rip you off. Psychological warfare. I try to do you down. There's a strict adherence to hierarchy and social ordering. So it means, and you get more detail on this on another transparency, what's important is really to observe the rules of hierarchy and not undermine it. And it starts from whom you say hello as the first of that group, whom you allow to go into this room as the first of this group. Here, you will have the highest rank of that Chinese group. You're sitting farthest away from the door. So it's important to make sure that you observe their hierarchy. Remember, we talked about Confucianism. Did I tell you the story with the emperor?
No, Professor.
Okay, here's the story. Every kindergarten knows that. Every kindergarten kid would know it. It's in China, hang on. Every kindergarten kid in China would know that story. Two, actually. There are several. That's how you grow up. Now, and forget about those abstract terms, hierarchy. So basically what I'm saying is, there's a guy married to a woman. He had to go to war, and she was pregnant. And she delivered a baby. However, he came not back from war until 15 years went by. So when he came back, closer to his house, on a little mountain, there was a young boy, that age. And he saw the warrior, and the young boy was there. There was a tree, and he had one of these marksman ships, and he was shooting arrows on this tree and the marksman to hit the middle. You know that. So, okay, he saw that soldier and said, "Hey, soldier, come over here. let's have a test of marksmanship. Okay, the soldier agreed and said, okay, my son, let's have a test. Took an arrow, like this, and killed the 50-year-old. Why did he do this?
Maybe because of the hierarchy. The boy is small and he has experience. He challenged him, like come to competition.
Right to the dot. Good point. Very good. Rarely have that. Exactly. Now here we have the Joe Schmo nobody. And you have a warrior who survives 15 years of war. I take it that the guy who survives 15 years of war must have some abilities to be very good at shooting. And now here comes this Joe Schmo little shitter and says, let's have a let's have a test of marksmanship and find out who's better. That does not work. If you challenge hierarchy, you get punished. And the punishment will not be, come on my son, let's sit down and discuss. Second story. There is an emperor and has a huge country and he has lots of generals or a number of generals. And he was very good at conquering other countries because he had excellent warfare strategies. And for his generals not to find out, he kept them in riddles. So a riddle means, you put it in a way that only you know what would be the answer to that riddle question. And in this, you had the strategy. So one day, one of the generals, he knew the riddles, they were laying around. Oh! Now I know how he does it. He deciphered the riddles. What he did next is, he took the army, he camped the army, went to the neighboring country, went to war, won that war, came back to the emperor, was kneeling down in front of him, brought him wonderful looking, nice, young, naked ladies, gems, jewelry, land, everything, gold, everything, slaves, as I just said. Kneeled down in front of him and said, Emperor, this is all to your glory. The emperor took a sword, cut his head off, was put on a stake, and in front of the gate for everybody to see. Why is that?
He didn't inform about his plan of going and conquering the other the land.
It was the emperor's job to bring this kind of a glory to the kingdom, and not for some.
No, but you're not too far away.
He tried to show he has more power than the emperor.
Not too far away. But currently he doesn't have power. He comes back and puts it all in front of the emperor. Says, here, my emperor. Imagine, we would understand the situation. This emperor, that bastard, goes out, attacks the neighboring country, loses it. We have to deliver the naked girls, the gems, the gold, and money and whatever, and give a piece of our land to our neighbors. Then we would say, that bastard, kill him. But now he brought this all. More land, more power, more slaves, more gems, diamonds, jewelry, gold. And you kill that person? I mean, we talked about loyalty. So, what went wrong here?
So he lost his face.
No. I want you to think about it. Come on, what else could it be? Okay, other question. Before I talked about the two kindergarten stories, what was the issue? The importance of
Hierarchy.
bingo. And then I all of a sudden told you that story, so it's got to be something in that context. Kindergarten stories. I don't say every Chinese kid, you have 1.4 billion people there, but many know the two stories or variants of it. This is like in Germany, Schneewittchen und der böse Wolf, oder Hänsel und Gretel. That's the stories, that's what they would know.
Currently, he holds all the land and gold, so he's giving to the emperor.
No. Come on, think. Don't wait for, another 2 minutes and then it gives us the solution. No. What could that be?
So just to recollect, the general decrypted his message.
No, that's not the problem.
Okay, that's not the.
Maybe he's getting more power.
He has no more power. The emperor has no more power. What's the problem? More nice young girls for the knights, money, gems. What do you want?
But then he goes to conquer the other kingdoms.
Yeah, but he has now already. The neighboring kingdom is now his. Imagine he would do this for you, and then you kill him.
Yeah, but he
Maybe the neighboring kingdom was not up to his level, or
He
like,
can do this again and again and give him more.
But he being subordinate to me does that. As in, he's a subordinate to me, and he goes and gets the kingdom. And
That was close to what you just said before. He's a subordinate of yours.
Yes, and
So I rephrase that question, or I put your statement in the question. Whose job is it to take the soldiers? No. Whose job is it to decide if you go to war or
the
not?
king.
Who did it?
the
The
soldier
general.
of the
General.
The general.
The general, yes.
So he violated that rule, hierarchy. He did what he was not supposed to do. And the thing you learn as kids from this is, if you do what you're not supposed to do, you get heavily punished. No matter if what you did was successful or what you did was a downright failure. Nobody gives a shit for this. What counts is he did what he was not supposed to do. I forget about the gems, the land, the country. You know what? It's me who takes that decision. You just did what's the emperor's job to do. And I kill you for this. That's stories that kids learn. So here you see the importance of hierarchy. Then, if we then eventually come into their country and ride roughshod over this, by the way, my name is Jürgen, what's yours? Take a seat wherever you like. That doesn't work. That will not work. So, again, we have to observe that for them this is critical, an aspect of hierarchy. So, strict adherence to hierarchy and social ordering is key. Then, a set of ethical codes governs social interaction within this social ordering. Ethical codes means, it basically goes, didn't I tell you about Confucianism?
No, Professor.
Okay, Confucius, that guy lived 500 years prior to Christ. Take a note of this. And strangely enough, that Sanzui or Sanze, San, S-A-N, T-Z-E or T-S-I, Sanzi, Sanze, depends on what books you look at. This is even used in the Sansui of marketing, the Sansui of human resources, the Sansui of production. You have that. So we try to get a little bit more understanding of it. That Sansui, that general, who said, remember, it makes no sense to go into a physical warfare. Because, didn't I tell you to go into Nuremberg to check out Nuremberg, what it looked like during wartime? See, and go to this church. If you leave the railroad station, go downtown, and then you go to the shopping mall. If you turn to the left, there's a huge street going left, or you go down to the river. There's a church up there on the right side. Go into this church, and on the left side, facing the shopping street, you will see pictures that will shock you. What that city looked like after the Second World War. That the town council people were deciding or questioning, should we set up Nuremberg somewhere else? No joke. Sanzui saw that 500 years prior. When Putin, this asshole, would conquer the Ukraine, or as he did right now with a number of parts of cities, this is all down. No electricity, no water, houses destroyed. So what has he won? People killed. That's what Sanzui realized 500 years prior to Christ, saying there's no war, physical warfare, that would bring out a real winner. We've got to go into another warfare, psychological warfare. And Confucius, who also lived that time, he lived in days, 500 years prior to Christ in China, there were lots of riots, lots of unrests, lots of wars in the country going on. And he said, and this shows you now, judge by yourself, it's important or not from today's perspective, this shows you that, no, his intent was, how can we get peace into society? And here comes the kicker, and not challenge the power of the ruler. Peace in society and not challenge the power of the ruler. And he was a philosopher, a teacher, a wanderer, an advisor to princesses, touring China, so no solid artisan craftsman. But that was in his mind. And for this, he set up 5 cardinal relationships. 5. Emperor underlings. You've got to do what your emperor tells you. You, however, have to be sagacious, which means well-intended, doing things that will benefit you. Relation number 1. Relation number 2, husband, wife. Now, the wife has to be submissive, obedient. Well, that's nice. Bark, jump, lay down, I want to have sex with you. And she would say, yes, master. But you're wrong. It is not slavery, because she has to do what he tells her. Submission is the word. But you have to be benevolent, protective. You're not benevolent and protective when you rape your wife, sell her out, or beat her up. So here, both have obligations. You have obligations to your husband, you have obligations to your wife. Father, son, same thing. Piety, son, and obedience, benevolence from the father. So he cannot give him misery in life to say, I enjoy that. The same goes for brother, older brother, younger brother. The same goes for older friend, younger friend. Confucius forgot to define, and here we have the clear obligations, mutual. You and you to him. And this creates harmony. And what Confucius said, if everybody does what he or she is supposed to do, you do what your husband tells you, and you be protective to your wife. And if both do what they are supposed to do, then there will be harmony in society. And if somebody breaks out of this, the punishment will be severe. And what he also said, as I told you, not to challenge the power of the ruler. And you know what? The Chinese had this idea so installed. See, the French, one day, they killed the king and brought up a revolution and ushered in a democracy. Whatever that democracy was about, but something like this. The Chinese, if you abused your rights and your position, they killed you. Put in a new emperor. Same thing, kill him, bring in a new one. They stick to the system. Now, Mao, who killed people by the millions. So Hitler could be a disciple of Mao. I really mean it. He killed 7,000 to 12,000 people. Million people. He tried to get rid of this shitty Confucianism. He couldn't get it out of people's mind. Nowadays, you could say the young people, what are they interested in Confucianism? Actually, you know what, you're right. But there's one situation that makes the system supported. Namely, you have your mutual obligations. Don't challenge the power of
Authority.
the ruler. Xi, their president, don't you dare challenging me. And you see he sets up everything he can. The very moment some opposition would come up, they would suffocate at the very moment. And this philosophical idea is wonderful to support this. So the system currently very much supports this philosophical thinking in their society. Very much. Young people would love to give it a finger, but no's. It is really trained. So when books tell you Confucianism, forget about it. 50% of the books, and 50% of the books tell you Confucianism is very important. You have China experienced for the first time. What is right, what is wrong, it's a question of ambiguity. This is welcome to China. So this was Confucianism. So they had basically these strict ordering of relationships in society except for one. So you would know how to behave towards your emperor, towards your father, towards your elder brother, towards your friend. What relationship has not been defined? Towards outsiders. Outsiders, not a Chinese, not necessarily a German or a Westerner or an Indian. An outsider is a person you don't know. Another Chinese is an outsider. In Confucius' days, you lived in small villages and you didn't have planes, cars, bikes, motorbikes. You were walking. So if there's somebody who would show up, you would per se be distrustful, per se say, oh, let's be careful not to be ripped off by that person. This is still in their mindset. You don't trust strangers. It's from the philosophical background that dates back 500 years prior to Christ. And we cannot get rid of this because they now run around in Western outfit and eat hamburgers. It is now 2,500 years incarnated in their mindset. And you want to get rid of this, what, in 20 years, 40 years? That's a joke. So, basically, coming back to my comments on this, a strict adherence to hierarchy. And you see where it comes from. And you learn it from early on. You do what your father tells you to do. And I mean, you have a similar situation in India, that your father has a certain position, right? So that your father will tell you what you're supposed to do, and parents are honored much more than they might be in the Western world. And it's also part of your cultural background, mindset. Now remember, when I was talking, this is 7-8 years ago, to a guy who held a PhD in electronical engineering, came from India into Bamberg, and was in charge of a department. And I said, have your parents, I want to see where he is from his mindset. Have your parents ever been here? No, Mr. Gatz. Parents never saw snow. I'll bring them into Bamberg in summer when it's warm. How old is your mother? My father's 72 years old. What would you do if your father gets seriously ill or sick? And he looked at me like, what would you do if it's cold and the window's open? Mr. Gatz, I would go home immediately. That shows me how he saw his father and in what kind of tradition he was still fixed. So, talking about our Chinese, strict adherence to hierarchy. A set of ethical codes govern social interactions. You do what you're supposed to do. You don't take decisions that are not yours to take. If he is the boss who takes the decisions, if you will buy, if you accept the 5% discount, if this or that will happen, hey, I can't ask you. In negotiations, Western world, hey, Peter, if I give you 5%, would you be willing to order 10,000 more? We would have the discretion to decide this here at the table. In China, in negotiations, Mrs. Soleil, we would be willing to give you 5% if you can order 10,000 more. You need to go to a recess so that he can ask the boss how he sees this. That's the input. If you decide for what your boss I decided in favor, that was a unique opportunity. Remember the emperor and the general? So if the Germans push and push and push, in the United States we can horse trade, that's the term for it. We horse trade, haggle. Negotiations in China is we meet and make declarations. We make a declaration, go into a recess for the other party to find out if their bosses agree or don't. In our last lesson I'll show you in the graph how this power structure is being set up. The source of the power is indivisible, it's the CEO. Remember the company owner, when this, I don't know his name again, Peter and Mike, whatever, met and could do business with this company owner. That was perfect. He was talking to the decision maker. That was taken from him the very moment he was no longer an insider. So decisive is what that guy says, not the laws. And importance of form over content. That also refers to faith, respect, and trust. With a look at, oh yes, but still I'd like to do this one. Do me a favor and pick this one out.
Professor,
Yes?
whatever you just explained, is that one of the main reasons why currently the president, He's been there since the last decade or more.
Yes.
He's trying to extend it,
Yeah.
and no one is competing against
Bingo.
that decision. So,
Bingo. Yes, that's it.
so
As long as he can translate his activity into I'm doing everything to support China, be sagacious, well-meaning, well-intended, being very clever, do the best for the country. There's no reason to kill that guy. The very moment, and that's what he's afraid of, the country would start suffering severely, they will try to get rid of him. And to have a revolution at your hand. They do this.
Yeah.
Another one. So this is the last one, we call it a day, but let's briefly talk about this one. And in our next lesson, this is the last one then, I'd like to do two things. We have three scenarios I'd like to work with you on, and I'd like to make some comments on Chinese concept of friend. I have to hand this one out in our next lesson. And I'd like to make some comments, which is important, on values and how we see each other, Western world, Chinese world, and you much better understanding than we had the scenarios. And here, when it comes to negotiation style, Western world, China, see what it says here in the Western world is more concerned with the end than the means. In other words, the goal, the contract, is the most important aspect, not the process how we get there. In China, that is different. In China, more concerned with the means than the end. Process more important than goal. Now, translate this back into one of our preceding lessons. Remember, in former days we said we go for red, the best deal. But then we came to realize we might have the best justification, the best calculated reservation value. But we corner our counterpart. And if they feel cornered, pushed, patronized, you won a contract, but you lost the negotiation partner, respectively a potential supplier, a potential buyer. So what we said, what is important is get a good deal and nurture the relationship. Remember, that's what we said. You have this in China in the deluxe version. For them, what's important is much more the process. If I find the process of negotiations has taken face, has been plain red, no, we look for somebody else. You look for a negotiation process that follows certain Chinese ethical standards. Then you come to a long-term relationship. If you go for a business deal, you just killed the relationship. It's different. In the Western world, what counts is the contract. Chinese world, what counts is how you get there. We have a scenario for this which will explain it much more in detail. Then it gets much more light. Then, for us, it's the fighting, the conflict, going for the truth. Who has the better arguments? We go into a verbal fighting of arguments. Which price is justified? Yours, you want to have, or mine, I want to pay. We try to exchange arguments on this. In the Chinese world, that's different. The way is avoid conflicts, and remember the Taoism. Tao means the way. Getting through forces that, there are forces that constantly fight, collude, and constantly cooperate. And you need to get through that. And by doing this, you cannot separate it. Day and night, that gives 24 hours. Heat and cold, warmth and what's fire and ice, light and darkness. It somehow belongs together. It's a unity. The two contrasts form a unity. And for them, haggling, coming up with by the end of the negotiations, coming up with a package deal is ideal. If you go into conflict, you destroy harmony. You take face. If you focus on haggling, package deals, trying to, again, you give me, I give you. You find a way through. Compromise means you give me something, you don't get what you expected to get. I give you something, I don't get what I expected to get. But still we have a deal. Both are better off. It's perfect. Western world, you think that's substandard. There's no answer, it's right or wrong, this country. So here they go for haggling, and you settle differences in a compromise. And this is not just China. Remember, when we had this question to tick, they sell widgets from the United States. They wanted to have $1,200 per piece, and the Japanese only wanted to pay $1,000. What do? Offer, I don't know what it was, a larger quantity or whatever. No, you bring up the compromise. Compromise is considered the best. Here you have it. That's very, very, very Southeast Asian. To focus on a compromise, finding a way through all these problems, and then still face not being destroyed, cements relationship perfect. Having said this, I'd like to call that a day for today because I see the air is out. So let's focus in our next lesson on the last aspects, which is again, if you don't need the time, you'll end up earlier, but I'd like to do these two sheets I handed out and explain to you what it means to be an old friend of China. And I have two scenarios more that deal again with how to establish business contacts and what could go wrong, because that's where you part and parcel. First of all, get into the negotiation room. That's it.
Professor,
have a nice evening.
one more question, if you don't mind.
Yes.
So, whatever you're teaching is negotiating with the Chinese, and imagine if there are 100 people who are dealing in business partnerships with the Chinese. How many of them, according to you, use these strategies? Or more like, do they even know that something like this exists?
Today?
Generally. If there are 100 people who are dealing with the Chinese,
50%.
50% are using this strategy.
50, perhaps 60, but no more.
Okay.
Because they still think it's done like in the Western world.
Okay.
And they go for kill with a knife in your smile. I know so many companies that blundered as a result of this. And the scenarios show you've got back home, you don't have support for the fact that you change and negotiate a contract. A contract is a contract. Are you mad? That's what they pay. And now they pay what they want? No. You get the sanctions. So we will allow this to happen. And basically the company just lost the business partner.
But probably in some cases the Chinese party is very much dependent on the foreign party, and then they have to give in. I mean, they don't really care about...
In the ambiguity of China, yes.
So they do that also.
If there's a political need for something, if they need to have something, and they direly need these components, you can dance on the table and they will accept it. But this is more the exception than it is the rule. If you go for mainstream, you must focus on, again, I told you about this architectural bureau, Red Nose. I have a company here in the vicinity. They had a joint venture. They gave the majority up, 49-51. They changed this, gave it 51 to the Chinese. From then onwards, it was basically, don't call us, we call you. They were afraid of all the rest. Then they wanted to bring in an own CEO for their part. They hired someone from, I think I told you, they hired someone from San Diego. It's wrong, Seattle.
Okay.
And this guy from Seattle, he was a Chinese. You know, Mr. Gatz, we hired a Chinese. Oh, where did you find him? Well, he went to, and he told us, he went to UCLA. UCLA means University of California, Los Angeles. And he has a business MA. And I thought to myself, what idiots. I mean, they hired a guy who ticks like the Westerners. He looks Ching Chong Chinese, but his mindset is Western. This is like the one case we had with this guy who went, remember, establishing a report, who went to do from San Diego into Latin America, had a Latin American name, but went to a school in the US, spoke English, and had an American mindset. And now, simply because his name is Duarte, it doesn't mean he has a change. Yes.
The pyramid. The top one is still up to the individual.
Yes. So the mindset was, and here you have this company, I'm not allowed to give names, but it's in the vicinity here, and I was wondering, and they were wondering, Mr. Gatz, it still doesn't work. And you know, you have then eventually to keep your mouth shut and not to say what you really think about it, because it was the silliest thing you could do, because that guy was like a Westerner. Why do you spend so much money to get the guy from the US into China to represent a German company with a Western mindset? I mean, this is, you can hardly make it worse than by doing that move. And then we had to, you know, step by step, very carefully, not to make them lose face. I tried to explain them what they need to do. And this is what you still find till the very day.
I see.
You have companies that have already made some experience in China.
Uh-huh.
They are much better at this.
So why are we mainly focusing into China? Is it because they are the leaders in the market or
Yes. Yes. Two reasons. And I really mean it. Yes, and I have to run.
Oh, sorry.
No, give me the answer. Come on, I want to do this. I don't want to remember this till next time. Two reasons for it. Because I have it on my mind. It's there. Number one, China is, if not the largest, and then the second largest powerhouse in the world.
Yeah.
Economic powerhouse. Right now, economic powerhouse. You're right. Number two, don't forget, Volkswagen sells more Volkswagen in China. Get a load of that. More Volkswagen in China than Volkswagen does in the rest of the world.
Oh.
And that includes Germany, Europe, United States, Latin America. All of that together does not match up to what they sell in China. Now take a wild guess. How many, haven't you heard about, it was just in the news, because of this corona incidents, and the fact that they have now 880,000 people less than the year before, that they expect a certain decline in the economic growth, and that this would particularly hit Bavaria. Because here in Bavaria we have many companies that have very extensive routes into China. We have lots of suppliers that support components from China. So for us this is like a business partner next door. And China is buying themselves into Western companies. Guka, they are buying into the worldwide largest producer of construction machinery for construction sites. Is located in Baden-Württemberg. The company was just sold to Chinese. We have a company here in Ontech, which is in Naida. They produce machines according to companies' needs. If you produce something, they will understand what you need, and then they produce machines who can produce this part. So very specific, you must have very good engineers, state of the art, to develop machines that can produce new things that you want to have. So they develop new manufacturing processes. The company went to the wall basically because of Corona and a number of other problems with Russia. Take a wild guess whom this company belongs now.
Chinese.
Bingo. Bought themselves in, it's theirs. And this is the one reason. And the second reason is I get feedback from students from courses like this. Mr. Gatz, can you support me with information? I have to deal with Chinese. I'm running into problems day and night. And then I said to myself, Gatz, I'm sick and tired of this. We at least use 3 weeks of our 16 weeks to focus on one of our major partners, which is China, to give these guys, if you ever get into this position, you have a long you know how to proceed. It might not be perfect, and you are not experienced in it, but you're not blundering, you're not literally like a magnet moving into every water hole there is, because you still understand, I see that. At least 3 weeks I want to invest in it. How does fast negotiation? Another reason is, you know what, you start to adopt things from there. Remember, in former days it was a contract. Nowadays it's a contract relationship. And there are a number of other similarities that we adopt. Sunset and marketing is what we try to sunset in the world, what we try to get into our society to benefit from. And I always try to see that education here future-oriented and not what was important in the past. And in the future, like it or not, I rather don't like it than like it. And Chinese will play an important role. It will be what? If you ask me, I'll tell you something about their backwater approach. And once you learn about it, you much better understand the future. I told people 50 years ago that I lived for it, that there's a day coming up, and I'm not cheap, I look at the future. But there's a day coming up where the Chinese will only control the electric car sector. Well, people were laughing at electric cars.